Jamie Ray from Jamie Ray Vintage. Today's DIY is this American Girl doll house. This doll house was made with mostly pallets and reclaimed wood and a few things bought from the home supply store. For under $50 you can make this American Girl doll house. We made it for our girls for Christmas.
So we showed you in my pallet breakdown video how to take these pallets apart with a reciprocating saw, but I also mentioned that we're going to be building an American Girl doll house for my daughters. This is one of them, and she's going to be helping me out here today, holding these up steady so I can break them down a little faster. So we're going to break a few of these down, and then I'll show you how we're building that house and give you some of the dimensions on it. Thanks to the magic of editing, our pallets are all apart now. It only took us 30 seconds. But this is the base of the wood I'm going to be using. It's been outside, so I'm going to let it dry out. It's got some snow on it. And then we're going to start measuring out and cutting to fit our space. I've got a 60-inch by 40-inch space downstairs in the basement that we're going to put this, and we're going to base the size off of that. I had to cheat just a little bit. I didn't have a pallet that was quite as long as I needed it to be. So I've got this measured out to 60 inches. And I'm just going to make a frame almost like you would for a regular house. Now my space is 60 by 40, but I'm only going to make the house come out 32 inches. It's going to have 24 by 24 inch boxes inside. That's what the size of the room is going to be. I want to have that extra 8 inches because I'm going to build a little porch on the front, and hopefully if I can do this right we'll have the eaves coming out over the top. So I'm going to get this cut, I'm going to start putting it together, and you'll see it kind of start to frame out a bit. Got my speed square out, make sure that I'm nice and square on my edge here, and then I'm going to go ahead and nail just right in here at an angle, and I'll show you how to tie that in. So I realized my house was going to be 32 inches wide. That's not going to fit through the doors very well on the interior doors to get it down into the basement. So I went ahead and I stood this up and I chopped 1 inch off of these because I still want most of my interior space to be the same. I'm just going to have to shorten my porch. So that's 29 inches now. Will work, that'll fit through any interior door. Most of them are at least 30. Here I'm going to put a support beam right in here for the flooring and the front of the porch, and that's where I'm going to build up from right there. So this is going to be where the porch is, and then back here is the house, and I'm going to put some flooring in right across there. Okay, so I have both girls out here helping me now. Aldelia is my older daughter and Eliza is my youngest daughter, and they are going to mark this right at 19 inches for me so we know where to put the upright support. So mark it along that speed square, Aldelia. Mark it the long way.
Oh.
There you go. That's going to be our straight line right there. So find 19 inches. Where's 19 inches at? You holding that flush against there, Eliza?
Yeah.
Okay, get it right on 19 inches, right up against that board. Nice. Good job. That's a nice straight line. That's where our wall's going to be. Okay, so we've got our line here. This is our porch area out here, and I'm just going to put this right along the edge of that 2x4, and the girls are going to hold it up straight for me, right like that. Now I'm going to tie in right here on this piece of wood. This is going to be the back wall. Now I've measured so that I know how much. It's 2 inches from the edge, and I'm going to put some decorative stuff on the outside of this back wall here that I've got left over. And this here is going to be my back wall. It's going to be hidden. I'm using one of the really old nasty 2x4 sections from the pallet. Got the side supports up. We'll get this pounded in, and then I'll show you across the back for the top support, and we'll start putting sides and walls on this thing. So on this bracket here, I'm using a piece of the pallet wood. You can still see I left some of the nails in. Those should be okay. They're not going to really affect how this holds up structurally. And we're going to get this nailed on. I probably should have nailed this part on when I had it before, but I'm kind of going without any real definite plans on this. I've got a pretty good idea of what I want to do, and I've got some dimensions drawn out. But in retrospect, nailing this up like this, if I pound this like this, it's just going to beat this thing apart. It's not super strong yet. So I've got it clamped up here, and I'm going to drill this in with a screw so that that'll hold this side brace. I'm going to be putting this support brace here in on the middle for the backer board that I'm going to put on, and that's going to be the back wall of the house. I've measured it out to 30 inches so that this is right in the center of my 60-inch wall. So this is the framework. That's a piece of the flooring that I'm going to use down on the bottom. That is just an old tabletop that's got veneer. It's MDF, but this is the whole frame here. And that's how big it'll be. It'll have some roof up top over here that's kind of angled back, and we'll put some shaker style shingles on that. I've got this 2 by 1.5 notch trimmed out. I've got to cut that to fit right there in that corner so that this can sit flush. And I'm going to go ahead and cut that out, and then the boards are going to come all the way over. By the time I get over here, I'll have to cut a notch out here. All of this is going to be hidden. I'm going to put a backer board on it, and it'll be real nice and clean looking on the back, so you won't see that. But I'm going to put the flooring down first before I do the wall section, and then I'm going to trim along the bottom of the wall almost like a baseboard would be on a normal home. That's how that's going to fit in there. I just used the reciprocating saw, same one I used to take apart the pallets. Didn't feel like getting the jigsaw out, and it cut it down pretty quick. This is going to be all trimmed out here, so you won't see any of that. That'll all be hidden. And it comes out real nice and flush with our porch area here, and we'll build that in a little bit. Alright, we're ready to nail this floor on. We've got Odelia, we've got Eliza, and our neighbor Lily is here to help. She's going to help us put together the floor here. We've already got the back secured. I just went ahead and did regular nails through the back there. And they're gonna nail these front ones down. All right, girls, go ahead and go. Let's see some proper dance moves. Okay, so we danced on the floor. It's all in there and secure. You'll notice I left the nails out and visible. We'll probably whitewash that when we're all done. I actually didn't have quite enough, so I had to borrow from another piece of tabletop that we had laying around. But it's secure, and those nails will look really cool when we whitewash the floor and sand it down a little. Now I'm going to put this backer on. Jamie's in charge of the paint. I'm not sure if she's going to stripe this. She probably would prefer that it be like beadboard, but this is what I've got, and I've got 2 days until Christmas to get this done. So here's the back side of that. All that ugly pallet wood, you won't even see it. It'll be completely hidden. Each story, I'm going to have a first story, second story, and something of an attic. This is going to come right in here and slide in here in between these two. I purposely didn't cut this because I didn't want to have to cut around. So I'm going to add this now, and that'll add more stability to this. Instead of actually measuring, because I'm not so sure how square with this crooked wood is, I'm going to just mark where I need to cut right here. And then I've already got a nice line, and then I'll add my piece in, and that'll be part of the support for the second floor. 24 inches from the floor base is right there. So I want the top of my board to be right there, free floating. It's a tight fit, which I like. So, and I'll measure the back end too, because I'm not going to trust that this is straight planed wood. So I'll bolt that in right there. I'm going to use screws like I did on the back end. Right here, I'm just going to drill my countersink holes. So I put the clamp on. It was wanting to spread on me a little bit, and the screw was pushing through to the wood and just separating that. So put the clamp on, problem solved. So I have both sides measured out. I'm just going to use this scrap that I had left over from one of the pallets. I'm just going to staple these in because they're not load bearing. They're literally just going to shape the window. Now I've got my window frame. This is just that pallet wood. This is all going to be hidden, so I don't care that it's kind of abnormal here. But this is going to be the inside part of my window frame here. And I did it to both sides. All I did here was cut a piece of wood and staple it in like I stapled in these braces here. Time to put the side on. Before I do that, I've got this piece of 2x4 that I've just cut in half, and slide that right down in here. The reason that I want this on here, because if I didn't add this piece, I'd have nothing to tie my backer board to right in here on the bottom, and it'd just be floppy. I've got this side piece here measured up to the bottom of the window. I'm going to run it all the way up and staple it in. Now I need to just frame out this window a little bit here, where the window's going to go. So I'm just going to draw the frame right where it goes. You should end up with a square that looks like that. I'm going to cut that out. Use the miter saw to cut out here. Now I'm going to just score along the line with my razor blade here. There's probably an easier way to do this, but this works pretty well for me. Now I've just got this little saw blade here. It's basically a hacksaw. I use it for my small detail work. I'm going to run it right along the edge here. The inside is just about framed out. I've got to build another story and put a divider in there. Remember, you're not going to really see any of this here once I'm all done. And the windows are framed out too. I may go back in when I'm doing my finished work and do a crossbar, but we'll see how much time I have to do. I gotta get this done before Christmas. While you weren't looking, I installed this crossbar along the back. This is going to be the support for the second story, and we'll build that out. It's going to have 4 rooms divided, but this is tied in with screws. I just went from the back side of the house, the ugly side, and we'll just put a floor right on top of that like we did on the bottom. I had to recruit an assistant. The girls are all tuckered out after hammering.
What am I doing?
We are just going to pound in some nails, and you're going to hold the board up for me because I don't feel like clamping it.
Where are we holding it up at?
So I've got a line right here. This is the support for the second story on the front. So kind of put your knee up against that wall and hold that right on that line there for me. Don't let it fall. I've got my boards all cut out, and I'll nail them in a minute. I pre-sanded them before I put them up here. You can see there's a couple little uneven spots, but I'll fix that with a sander. I just use a rotary sander. But the reason I did it before is because you can't get back into these corners good, and it saves a lot of time. I found if you can sand a piece before it's all assembled, you'll get a lot better sanding job on it. But what I wanted to show you I got this flooring piece here that I'm gonna have to cut so that these fit. So I've just got this right here. I'm just gonna make a little line, a little tick mark there. And then what I'll do once I cut that, I'll move it over to the center so that you can't tell as much, and hopefully the wall that I put in will hide some of that gap and you won't be able to notice that these are all uneven. So I trimmed that piece down. I'm gonna set it right in there, it fit really nice. And now I'm gonna just tie those all down in as tight as I can get them, and we'll come back through and sand all this down in the front so that I got a nice rounded lip. Measured out the center here, you can see that line right there. And that's where the center of my wall is gonna be. I'm gonna make 4 rooms out of this. I'm gonna tie that in. I almost forgot to tie it in before I put the floor on. This is not secure yet. That way I can go straight down into this, and then I'll put my flooring on up top. Alright, now the top floor is going in. Debated whether to stain it or not, but I think I'm going to just paint it white like the bottom floor. Kind of rustic, it's not completely uniform, and I don't want to sand it down enough so that there's no ridges. Probably do is paint it white and then go over it with the sander and bring some of this detail in the wood out. Just want to test out the stability here, see how sturdy it is. It's looking pretty good. This is an old piece of backer board that was on an entertainment center. It's going to be repurposed into one of the walls. We've decided we're going to do a couple of bedrooms on the bottom and leave the top an open concept kitchen dining room. But the reason I'm going with the top, because mostly from what I've seen, my girls' American Girl dolls do cooking and eating versus sleeping in their bedrooms. So I'm going to put it right here where it's more accessible and easy to get to. When I started this morning, this wasn't looking like much, and it still pretty much doesn't look like much. It's very solid, very sturdy. It's how I like to build things. But I'm going to get some siding on here, trim out these edges here, get the porch on the front, and put a roof on it, and this is going to be looking pretty awesome. Really coming together. I just need to strap that porch on the front, and we'll have the floorboard on the porch all done. Now you may notice some of these are not exactly even. That is actually on purpose, and it's got some divots and dips and things. I wanted it to look like a rough country porch. Time to start putting the siding on. You can see the front porch right here. So I'm going to put the siding on right over here, and we'll make this thing start looking like a real house. It'll go all along the sides. It's 19 inches wide. I'm not going to come out past the porch, and I'm just going to staple it on. Let me show you how to do that real fast. Cut out 2 little spacers. They're just the width of the board. You can pretty much put them anywhere you want. I'm just going to leave mine there and there. And then this is more of that old pallet wood. So the reason for the spacer, I'm going to tie my spacers in. Let's go ahead and tie them in. And now I've got a nice angle there. What you're going to do, just takes a staple on each end. 1 staple there, 1 staple there. That's the bottom of my side. Now this is pretty simple here as well. You're just going to line it up. You want to make sure it's nice and even. If you cut your boards all the same length, you can feel when they're over. And to get my distance, I've cut out this piece of wood here that just slides right up there. And that's how I know when my spacing's right. So you just get your staple gun, make sure you're lined up before you commit to it. Come test the width on the other side. Okay, on to the next one. Now this is pretty similar to how you would do siding on your house, except for you'd probably use a galvanized nail that would just sit up underneath this lip here, this ridge here. And this is how you would do wood shingles on a home, or wood siding, same concept. So I'm going to get all of this done, and then I'll show you what it looks like. It's going to be the side of the house, and we will most likely paint it and not leave it that color, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. So we've got all the siding on here, and the porch. And I did just the front. I finished off the front of it here with just small pieces along that edge. And up here we have a support brace. This is going to be part of the roof, but it also is going to be a little attic cubby space for them to store stuff or have their dolls hang out up there. The window's all cut out. I just used the same reciprocating saw. You'll see I boarded over the other window because that side's going to be up against the wall in the house, and you won't be able to see anything out of it but the wall anyway, so that's on purpose. We're putting the roof on now. These are my support braces that are going to go across the back, essentially rafters. I've got a 15-degree taper cut for the angle right here and on the bottom. That way my roof will lay flat across the top there. And these are just 10 inches long. I don't want it to be super tall. So we'll put that, and then I'll attach some more siding just like I did on the side over here. Now also, when we come from the front, I'm going to bring that up and it'll tie right into there. Just need a countersink, a couple of places for screws to go on here. I'm getting the taper on the angle that I want, so I just use my speed square. It's pretty easy to just kind of catch this edge here. That way I've got a nice straight line. And then I just followed the top of this 2x4 here. You can kind of see where it's at, see where you're straight. And that's where I'm going to make my cut. And this is going to be the front cross beam from the front of the house to the back of this support. Ignore the messy shop, guys. This has been quite the project, and I'm rushing to get it done before Christmas, which is tomorrow. It is Christmas Eve today. Had to sleep on this one last night. That support brace is in. You can see I'm shaking the whole house with it. It's in nice and tight and sturdy. So I'm going to go ahead and do another one on the other side, and then we'll get this roof across.
Okay guys, we've got the house all built and it's time for finish work. The first thing I'm going to be doing is working on the floors. On the upstairs, they're going to get a dark walnut stain followed by a classic gray stain, and then I'll be sanding it so that way it looks weathered. We'll get started on that and then we'll show you our next step. So we've layered our dark walnut with our gray stain on top. Next thing we're going to use is I have 60 grit sandpaper and my sanding block, and I'm going to go over it and rough it up to kind of give it a rustic look and bring back some of the wood grain that was covered up by the gray stain. When we're all finished, we will seal everything with polyurethane, but for right now our floor is finished. It looks great. It looks like an old rustic floor, just the way I wanted. The bedroom is finished in Fairy Chalk Mother Lady Pink, and the bathroom is finished in Fairy Chalk Mother Tidal. I also painted the front porch in Fairy Chalk Mother Snowflake, and I also painted the siding. We'll show that to you. Stain and dirt from time kind of came through the paint, which is fine because I'm going to take my rotary sander and go over this and make it look like a weathered old farmhouse. Okay, and so in the bedroom, we're gonna be using batting. This is leftover from an upholstery project, and then I have some leftover fabric. You can use cotton fabric, upholstery fabric, whatever works for you. I've got my batting down, and I'm gonna go ahead and staple it in the corners. And then I'm gonna staple it in the middle. And then I'm gonna pull it forward and staple it in the corners here. And I'm gonna go around all the edges and staple it in place. Next step is going to be to glue on our trim. I've used staples, so to cover up my raw edge, I have fat trim. It's about 1.5 inches wide, and I'm just going to go all the way around. I'm going to use my hot glue gun, put a nice thick bead of glue, and then just cover up my trim, cover up my staples. Gives it a nice clean edge.
So I've got a routed piece of wood. I routed the sides, the top, and left the bottom flush because I'm just going to set it here on the front of the porch. You'll notice my siding is gone. Jami did not like that, but I think this trim looks better anyway, so don't tell her, but she was right. So I'm just going to staple this on. Anywhere the staples are left showing, you can just go through and put a little dab of paint on them. Okay, so I got that piece of trim on. I'm going to put another one on all the sides. The roof is finally going on. I've cut the edge right here to kind of go with the taper of the roof, and we'll put some siding there. Just going to staple it on real fast. We haven't decided if we want to stain it or just paint it a different color so that it contrasts a little more with the siding. So this is just cedar fence wood that I picked up down at the hardware store. It was $2.55 for an 8-foot section by 6 inches, and it's 1/2 inch thick. When I mentioned that Jami would most likely want beadboard, well, look what we've got here. She's trying to break my $50 budget. Almost did it. This sheet of beadboard by itself is $22. But she's right. It will look great. So that beadboard there is actually not quite secure yet. I got it sideways. Jami wants it to look like shiplap, so that's why it's in there horizontal instead of vertical. Now I got to secure that in and then put these other sides in. You won't be able to see that fun stain down there on the bottom. That'll be gone. We'll leave the window box. I'll have to cut that out so that still has a window on that side. The last of the shiplap / beadboard.
Hey, if it's good enough for fixer-upper, it's good enough for my dollhouse. I mean the girl's dollhouse.
Uh-huh. Oh. Viewers did not see that.
Trick number 1, staple to the wood. Okay, so our American Girl dollhouse is all finished. What's your girl's favorite part?
I really like the kitchen.
The kitchen. Eliza, what's your favorite part?
The room.
The room. Are you guys gonna have so much fun with this?
Yes. Yeah.
To see the paint used on this project today, visit my website, JamiRayVintage.com. Be sure to give us a thumbs up and subscribe to Jami Ray Vintage for more DIY.